Good morning, everyone. So to change pace a little bit, I'm going to start off by asking you a question. So how many of you drove here and had to search for more than 10 minutes to find a parking spot? Almost nobody. So that either means that the convention center is doing really well at providing parking for people, or it means that you knew it would take you so long to find a parking spot that you just decided to take transit in the first place and didn't want to bother with driving. So parking, as I'm sure you've experienced in other days of the year, is quite an inconvenience, specifically because you have to search for it. And it's an inconvenience in a lot of cities. In Los Angeles, for instance, it takes about 15 minutes on average to find a parking spot. Now, if you sum that up for a whole year, it's about 100 hours, which is equivalent to 4 days. So on average, people spend 4 days searching for parking in the downtown area of Los Angeles. It's a very similar story in different cities, other major cities such as New York and San Francisco, very similar numbers. In Toronto, it's about 7 to 8 minutes on average to find a parking spot in the downtown area. So as you know, parking is not just painful for us as users, but it's also cumbersome for people that have to provide it. These are city planners and property owners that give you parking. In fact, a lot of valuable land is allocated to parking. In the United States, for instance, if you sum up all the parking spaces that you have and you put it in one place, it's about 5,000 square miles, which is almost the size of the state of Connecticut. It's huge. And sometimes, you know, this land that we allocate to parking is very valuable. In Hong Kong, for instance, one parking spot can cost as much as $200,000 US, just because land is scarce and very valuable there. So this is the curse of parking. It's an inconvenience for us, and it's cumbersome for people that have to provide it. But there may be some good news. With the advent of autonomous vehicles, and as you know, they become more, as they enter the market, we may be able to alleviate some of the issues we face with parking that we've been facing for the last few decades. So I'm going to start off with giving you a small scenario. Let's say later on today you decide to go to a mall. Naturally, what you do is you drive, you find a parking spot, park your car, and then you walk to the mall. On your way back, you walk to your car, and you drive back home. Now, consider the same scenario, except this time you're driving an autonomous vehicle. What happens instead is you can drive straight to the mall, get dropped off right at the door, and then send your car to park itself somewhere. On your way back, you summon your car, it comes to pick you back up right at the door, and it takes you home. Now, there's two big advantages with this. The first big advantage is you no longer have to search for parking. You're getting dropped off right at the door, so it's super convenient for you. And the second big advantage is you no longer have to park close to where you are. You can send your car to park somewhere else that's cheaper or more convenient. So these are some of the advantages we'll see with autonomous vehicle parking. But how does the technology work? Let's say your car is starting to enter a parking lot. Essentially what happens is you got an operator that takes control of your car as soon as it enters and can decide where it wants to locate your car. In fact, that operator has control over all the other vehicles in the facility and can decide and can choose to arrange them in such a way to fit as many cars as possible in the facility. And so this gives them a lot of flexibility in how they arrange the cars in the limited space that they have. And the idea is they want to do it in such a way that they fit the highest or the largest number of vehicles in the space that they have available to them. So that's how the technology works. Now, one of the benefits, now the challenge with this is, you know, the decision process of where you put the cars becomes more complicated as the number of vehicles increases in your facility. When there's only a few cars, it's very easy. You don't have to worry too much. But as the number of cars increases, the layout that you have or the pattern of fixing these cars becomes critical. Now, one of the advantages of being able to move cars around is that you can pack a lot of autonomous vehicles together in small areas. So this is a comparison of a conventional parking lot on the left and an autonomous parking lot on the right. So on the left, which is what we see every day, is you got these small islands of cars that are separated from each other with these large gaps that are put there for maneuverability, because people have to go in and out of these parking lots. With autonomous vehicles, however, the cars are very packed together because the operator can move them around and can put them in whatever way it wants. The other reason we can pack these cars together is because you no longer need room for the doors to open, and you no longer need those gaps between the islands. So all of that enables you to make more effective use of this space you have available to you. But how do we locate the cars in the facility? So when a car enters the facility, you assign a spot to it, and it goes there to park. But the challenge is, when a car wants to leave, it might be barricaded by other vehicles blocking it. So what you have to do is you have to temporarily relocate those barricading or those blocking cars so you can release the one that needs to go out. And the idea we had for that relocation policy, for instance, you got the green car wanting to leave blocked by 2 red cars. You temporarily relocate the 2 red cars to release the green car that wants to go out. So this is a relocation policy that we came up with, but you can essentially have any relocation policy that allows any vehicle to leave at any point in time when it's summoned by its owner. Okay. Now, as academics in the research community, what we want to do is we want to model the system. We want to come up with optimal ways of designing the facility so that we fit in the maximum number of cars available given the constraints that we have. And so we build a model that would, as inputs, take the design demand for the facility, so how many cars is the facility serving, and the dimensions of the plot of land that we have. And with those two dimensions, with these two inputs, we come up with optimal layouts of parking facilities for autonomous vehicles. And essentially what you have is you got these large islands that are separated from each other by gaps. So this is a model that we built with those inputs and that output. And the results that we got here for different demands is presented here. So these are the layouts of the different facilities where we're increasing the demand from 600 to 780. When it's only 600 vehicles in the facility, you can see it's very similar to conventional parking lots. You got islands of 2 columns. That's pretty much what we see every day. But as your demand increases, what you start to see is those islands become larger and larger, where naturally at 780 vehicles, what you get is this futuristic scenario of a huge parking lots with large islands of cars parked right behind each other. Now, let me give you a glimpse of the future. This is an intersection at Bay Street and Edward Street, which is a really interesting intersection to look at for parking because it has residential buildings, commercial buildings. It has on-street parking lots and off-street parking lots as well, and it's connected to the path system. And as a bonus, it's very close to Uncle Tetsu in case you like Japanese cheesecake. So this is what happens here. On the top, you have what the intersection looks like today. This is exactly how it looks like today. On the bottom is what it looks like in the future. So on the northwest corner, you got this large parking lot right now, which possibly in the future is likely to turn into a condo because we don't need that much space for parking anymore. We're able to build more socially beneficial land use in those areas. In addition to that, on the northeast corner, you have commercial parking lots. You have commercial parking, which naturally could be turned into retail and services connected to the path system. And finally, the on-street parking lots on Edward Street can possibly turn into larger pedestrian sidewalks with better green spaces for the future. So this is a possible utopia of how autonomous vehicle parking could change the future of Toronto and that intersection in particular. So to sum up, our key findings was, first of all, we found out with autonomous vehicles, you can fit in 60% more cars in the same space that you have. So if you're fitting in 100 cars right now in your conventional parking lots, on average, you can fit in 160 now with autonomous cars. And it could be up to 90%, so it could be almost 200 vehicles, almost double what you have right now. Autonomous vehicle parking allows us to rearrange our land use and make more efficient use of the spaces that we have. That is more socially beneficial. And finally, we no longer need to park near our final destination, and we can alleviate some of the downtown parking problems that we face today. Thank you so much.